Hi, I'm David Schenk. I'm an attorney and enrolled agent, enrolled to practice before the IRS, and I talk about tax issues, estate planning, and asset protection. Today we're going to talk about IRS penalty abatements, your get out of jail free cards. Nobody loves a penalty. And as you probably know, the IRS charges penalties for many different things. There's a failure to file penalty if you don't file on time. And there's a failure to pay penalty if you don't pay your taxes on time. And there's a failure to deposit penalty for employment taxes if you don't deposit the quarterly or monthly taxes on time. And there are other penalties as well. However, you may not know that they also offer the possibility for penalty abatement. So what is a penalty abatement? A penalty abatement is when the IRS agrees to remove a penalty that they've previously applied. For example, the failure to file penalty that you would receive if you filed your return late. And they act as if the penalty never existed. Abatements come in various flavors, like the reasonable cause penalty abatement, which obviously requires a reasonable cause, and the first time penalty abatement, which doesn't require a reasonable cause, but which is only available to taxpayers who have not had a recent tax penalty before the penalty that they're trying to abate. The administrative waiver and first-time penalty abatement applies to taxpayers for the first year in which they miss a filing or payment. It's a one-time thing, or at least a one-time every 3 years thing, which is to say, it's not really a first-time penalty abatement because you can use it every 3 years. It's also one of the easiest of the penalty abatements programs that the IRS offers. And if you qualify, they're going to eliminate or reduce the penalty and any interest associated with that penalty. I have a whole separate video on the first-time penalty abatement plan. The reasonable cause penalty abatement isn't limited to just 1 year, but it requires that you have a reasonable cause. Things the IRS might consider reasonable include fire, casualty, natural disaster, or other disturbances, an inability to obtain records, death, serious illness, incapacitation, or unavoidable absence of the taxpayer or a member of the taxpayer's immediate family, or other reasons which establish that you used all ordinary business care and prudence to meet your federal tax obligations, but were nevertheless unable to do so. As you can see, you need to make a pretty strong case. But if you really weren't able to file or pay your taxes for some good reason, you might just be able to avoid paying that penalty. And then finally, this last kind of penalty abatement is pretty rare. But by law, if you receive incorrect written advice from the IRS and you're penalized for following that advice, then they will abate the penalty, which seems fair. But most people never get written advice from the IRS. And even though they routinely hand out bad advice over the phone on their taxpayer advice hotline, there is no penalty abatement available for bad phone advice. That's why this abatement is very rare, just because they rarely give out written advice. A nice little bonus to penalty abatement is if you do get the penalty abated, and it doesn't matter which kind you get, whether you get a first-time penalty abatement, a for-cause penalty abatement, or because you got incorrect written advice from the IRS penalty abatement, The IRS is also going to abate the interest on that penalty, which makes sense. They act as if the penalty never existed. And if the penalty never existed, well, then it can't be accruing interest. Disclaimer, this video and any accompanying text is for informational purposes only. The information provided does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice. No attorney-client or similar relationship is formed. If you require legal advice, please contact an attorney or other legal professional. This video covers a complex legal area in just a few minutes, and of necessity leaves out much of the detail. Don't make decisions based only on this video.